Hi, everyone. My name is Donna Peterson, and I am the CEO of World Innovators. Today, I want to talk about trade shows. I was recently at a show last week, I guess it was. Feels like it was already longer, but last week it was a PMA convention or sales and marketing roundtable, and the discussion came up: trade shows. Are they really worth it? And it just so happened I had that. And then I had an interview later in the week with Christy Doherty, and we talked about trade shows. Are they really worth it? Of course, I'm at the PMA event and I'm saying, yes, definitely. Trade shows can give you a wealth of information. You can build such great relationships there. Then I had an awful trip home, one of those where the flight was delayed. Then I didn't make my connecting flight. Then they put me on standby. Then they were telling me I had to stay overnight at the hotel at the airport. So at that point, I was thinking to myself, are trade shows really worth it? Even after going through all of that, I will still say yes, trade shows are worth it for me. Now, this is where we're going to talk today. You've got to evaluate whether trade shows are good for you. The first thing we want to talk about is trade shows. What can we get out of a trade show? What are the benefits of the trade show? Well, of course, there's the connections. You get to go around and look at different exhibitors, what their machines do. You get to go to some of the sessions. You get to see, what are they talking about? What are the newest trends? What are the different AI tools? What are the different regulations coming down with our industry? So you get to stay current. You make those connections. You're able to stay current. You're able to look at new pieces of equipment. There is a wealth of benefit that comes from trade shows. And trade shows are a very unique platform because they are live. This one I'm talking about in person. And what happens is some of the conversations you have with people are not something you had scripted. You had something in your agenda. They just happen. And those conversations oftentimes can give you a wealth of information that you can use for your own content, information that you can use for your specific company, how you can make your specific company grow. So going there is great, but we've got to sit and weigh the pros and cons. Of course, the con, everyone is going to bring it up. Donna, the money that's involved. Even if you're just attending, you're paying for your registration into the show. You've got to pay for your hotel, your flights, your time away from the office. It all adds up. And you sit there saying, is it really worth it? Is it really worth me taking the next 3 days, flying to California, being at that show? Will I really get enough value out of it? And that's attending. Now let's talk about exhibiting. Is it worth exhibiting? The cost of bringing the equipment in, the cost of bringing your whole team there, their hotels, their food, their time out of the office. Is it worth it? It's a lot to weigh because some of these trade shows, it is expensive. From what you pay for that garbage pail, to the padding under the rug, to the setting up of the equipment, the unions that have to carry in the equipment, there is a lot of money involved in trade shows. And so I can understand where companies might be saying, is it worth it? The pros are, like we were talking about a little while ago, the pros are you're able to build relationships with people sometimes you never even thought about starting a relationship with. You're able to develop those relationships. You're able to see how a piece of equipment works. For myself, I'll go to trade shows sometimes so that I can understand how a piece of equipment works so that I can market it better. So I get a lot of knowledge out of trade shows. A benefit I will always tell people, because as you do your marketing now, it's all about building relationships. It's about segmenting that list and send a message to that individual that speaks directly to them. In order to do that, though, you've got to know and understand your audience. You go to an industry specific trade show, that is where you are going to be able to find out about your audience. That is where you might know what titles they have, what industry they're in, but you know some of the nitty gritties. Do you know, like, what magazines do they read? What conferences do they go to? What pieces of equipment are they interested in? How do they like to receive information? Maybe they like that printed piece versus a digital. When you go to the trade show, you're able to speak to exhibitors, talk to them about who their customers are, who they're hoping to meet at the show. Is it a good show for them? It's just chit chat, but you do get a lot of information out of it. Then you go on, you go to the sessions, and like we talked about, it'll keep you up with the trends. But then when they do the Q&A, you get to hear what everyone's questions are. What is top of mind? Why are they in that session? What are they hoping to get out of it? Even as you walk out, you could say, so did you get out of the session what you were hoping? If they say yes or no, you could say, well, what was it you were trying to get? That gives you more information that you can use as a company for your marketing, so that your marketing speaks directly to them. Then while you're there, you might be standing in line getting a cup of tea. You could talk to the person in back of you, the front of you, the side of you, find out who they are. Why are they at this show? What are they trying to get out of it? So you see what I mean? Like, every single person you come in contact with, you can find out more about them. And that's so important, because you've got to know and understand that audience. But there really is no other place that I know where you can go and just accidentally bump into somebody, serendipitous, these conversations. Christy Doherty, which I'm going to mention her later, we just did an interview together all about trade shows. And she mentioned that, how that's what face-to-face trade shows give you. One other little secret about in-person trade shows is when you're on the floor, or even if you're just sitting around where everyone's drinking tea, eavesdrop on their conversations. See what they're talking about, because that tells you more. What's top of mind for them? What is important to them? What challenges do they have? What goals do they have? Trade shows give you that wealth of information. And as you start to form these relationships with people you bump into at the trade shows, you then can start to nurture them when you get back to the office with emails or phone calls, or following up about something they said. Maybe they said, oh, my daughter went off to Italy and she's studying there. You can follow and say, hey, how's your daughter doing in Italy? Or, oh, did you just go on that ski trip? How was it? You see, you start to develop that relationship into these long-lasting relationships that will last forever. Now, I've been in this industry for over 30 years, and some of my relationships were from trade shows. Some were because the people had booths right next to us, and you have your busy time, and then you have your slow period, but then you start talking to the people next to you at their booth. What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. How many kids do you have? What do you do? What are your hobbies? You just get to know them, and these relationships form. Last week, I had a great opportunity to have dinner with my good friend, Eileen Schwartz. Now, she now works at PMA. We're members of PMA. We're starting to do some things more with PMA. But Eileen and I had met years ago at a different publishing company. We got together and we picked up right where we left off. We were talking about all the trade shows we attended together years ago, and that relationship is still just as strong today. It's these in-show events, these conferences where you get that opportunity just to open up the relationship. It's not just, okay, how can we help you? This is it, but there, bam. No, it opens it up to a lot more, and those just grow. They grow and develop into successful ways to keep your business going. You can give each other advice back and forth, point you in the right direction. Trade shows are great for that. So you might be saying, okay, Donna, you sold us now. We want to go do trade shows. And I should say one thing quickly. I'm not just all, okay, in-person trade shows, don't do the digital ones. I'm not saying that because the digital ones still have their own merit and are great. But if you do want to bump into someone you weren't thinking about or get a wealth of information, in-person events are great for that. The other thing I've heard with trade shows, and this is coming from a lot of event organizers, is that trade shows have changed a lot since before COVID. Before COVID, you used to see they would send part of their team, mid-management. It wasn't as much top management. And recently I said to trade show organizers, why am I hearing from a lot of people that they're making actual sales on the show floor? And they came right out and said, Donna, it's because we're getting more top management at the trade shows. And we're getting almost entire teams. Because so many people are working out there remotely, they're using trade shows as kind of their one-stop shop. Come to the trade show and then coincide that with your sales meeting. Now, Christy went on to tell us that a lot of show organizers saw this need and they're now offering rooms outside of like the exhibit hall where companies can go in to set up a contract with a customer, maybe have their sales meeting. So it's a little value added that conference companies saw a need and they are now offering that out to people. So this is great because you've got your team coming, they're getting educated. Then you follow up maybe even after the show. What did you learn from the show? But then you dive into your sales meeting. Everyone's already out of the office. You don't pay for multiple airline trips. You're all right there getting it done. This is another reason why trade shows are so good right now to get those sales calls in. When I was at that show last week, one of the people said, how do you get people to answer your calls and be willing to set up a meeting with you? A lot of people, especially because they're working remotely, don't want to leave their work, their desk, to go out and have a lunch or even a dinner for that matter. They want to stay here. They want to get their work done and be done for the day. But if the person is already out at the trade show, what is it for them to, hey, you want to step outside for a minute for a quick 15-minute walk? And as you walk, you talk about things. Would you like to go across the hallway to get a cup of hot cocoa or tea or coffee, whatever it might be? Guess what? People are more willing to give up 15 minutes. They're there anyway. They're going to have that break. And so they're going to accept your sales meeting with you. And you'll get done what you need in 15 minutes. And even after the 15 minutes, if you feel like you need more time, if someone is there for days, they could say, you know what, let's meet again on Thursday. I have this free time. So this is why trade shows are so great, because you're out of the office. Okay. So now let's say I sold you, and I don't know why I'm selling you. I don't have a trade show to sell you, but let's say I convinced you that trade shows are the place to be to get that wealth of information about your target audience, meet new people, and to display your own brand. So enhance your own brand and your own equipment. Before you go, you've got to sit down and think about, what are our objectives for this show? So important. You go to some of those large trade shows, like last year, going to Fab Tech, and there's an exhibit hall here, there's an exhibit hall over here, there's an exhibit hall over here. There's sessions going everywhere. It's like, and if you don't have an agenda or your objective in line, then you're going to leave the show going, I didn't get that done. I didn't do this. It wasn't that good of a show for us. Is it really the organizer's fault? No, it's yours. You've got to get organized before you go. So sit down with yourself and your team, figure out as a company, What are your objectives? Then, as an individual, figure out what are my objectives when I'm there. For instance, when I go to a trade show, I try to get the list of exhibitors before I get there. I'll use Chat GPT. So there's lots of AI tools you can use, but I use Chat GPT to help me organize the exhibitors I want to see into a nice Excel spreadsheet showing me, okay, booth number, booth, the company name, the individual I'd like to meet with, what do they do? And then follow up with my notes. So I have a nice list to work off of so that when I get to a trade show, the list takes precedence. Everything on the list has to get done before I just randomly walk the exhibit hall or start to attend various sessions, because then I feel I am starting to achieve my objectives. So you have to do that if you're going to go to a trade show. If you're going to an exhibit at a trade show, it's the same thing. What are your objectives? What are you trying to accomplish as both a company and an individual? Then you have to think about, what's my show design? How big do we want our booth to be? How many people are we going to bring with us? And then besides that, either one of the two ways, you have to decide, do we need to host anything on the side? Do we want to have a team meeting? Do I want to have some client meetings on the side where I could really sit down at a conference table, give a presentation, and get their business? You got to decide if you want that, and then ask the organizers if they've got space for you. If not, it's your responsibility to find that space. Trade shows offer this wealth of information. If anyone or who is listening, if you have a question about trade shows, or you have seen why trade shows are such a great thing, please feel free to write in the comments and I will answer it, or I will say it out loud for everyone to hear across all the platforms. But trade shows are a space where people should consider it. I know right now people are saying, oh, we don't have the money. I don't know how you don't have the money not to do it, because trade shows, you will get everything back in return. You are seeing that people, it used to be years ago, you go to a trade show, it could be 3, 5 years down the road. I saw it. I had met someone, she called me 3 years after the trade show, started to give her information. The first sale didn't happen until 5 years after the trade show. But now I'm hearing from exhibitors and even some attendees that they're making actual sales on the floor. One, like I said, we've got more of the buyers there. The decision makers are there. So it usually takes maybe 5 different people or 7 different people in the decision process. If they're all there, they're all looking at that piece of equipment, they can decide then and there if they need it. Also, because they're taking entire teams and they're taking that top management, decisions are being made quicker. I strongly feel that trade shows are a place to be. I could talk about this for hours. I don't want to bore you with that. If you have any comments for me, please feel free to put any questions down below. I will check the comments and answer them. But also, I'm going to post in the comments the podcast that just went live today, which has more great insights about trade shows from Christy Doherty. She is an event organizer. She's been in this space organizing events for people and putting them on, and she can give some great tips on things to do, things to watch out for, how to plan for an event, how far out you've got to plan an event. Because some great events that are coming up are these smaller industry specific events. And then they offer some value added session with other sponsors. So it creates this nice collaborative environment where you might have a manufacturer here or a publication industry publisher talking, but then you might have a marketing company here. And then you might have a social media company here, or you might have, a printing company here. It's, a whole variety of leadership development company, a whole variety of different things where people, let's go to one place, they get all this help when they're out of the office, and it gives them that nice cohesive strategy. So comment below. I'd love to hear how this was helpful. If it wasn't helpful, let me know, because this helps me change over our LinkedIn lives to be more effective. And hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Bye.